Barcelona was established 620 kilometers from Madrid on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea between the mouth of the rivers Llobregat and Besòs, on the plain protected by the Collserola Ridge. This location greatly contributed to the fact that people started to move and live here in the 4th century. One can find a Rambla, or to be more precise, Ramblas, in every city now, or formerly under Spanish rule. The Ramblas of Barcelona, which is also called the Square of Flowers, consists of 5 squares, each one with an individual name. It's similar to a wide and more than 1 kilometer long street, with traffic going on both sides of it. The promenade, full of sycamore trees, divides the city in 2. Because of its central location, it's a suitable starting point to discover the Catalonian capital. There are many people who dress up in colorful costumes in order to ask for a little financial help after a short performance. There are bicycle-riding skeletons, a spitting image of Che Guevara, classic statues, and also Queen Cleopatra here. The mood of the square is formed by the pavilions of the pet merchants, florists, and newspaper stands. One can buy a monkey, rabbit, parrot, hamster, cat, and who knows what else. The selection of the florists is very wide. One can buy cut flowers, potted plants, and exotic wonders. Originally, the arena was the fighting ground of the Roman circuses, but the name was also used for the moat around the city, which, after a heavy rain, took the water to the sea. During Gothic times, it became a marketplace, which became larger and larger under Arabian rule. It was already called Rambla at that time. In the 13th century, several new gates were opened in the city wall, thus giving a boost to trade. Buildings such as the Santa Monica Monastery, Estudi General University, the Santa Cruz Theater, the San Bonaventura boarding school, and the foundry were built. The Rambla constantly changed from 1775. The Vey fountain was finished, public lighting was introduced, and sycamore trees were planted. Not only the remains of the city wall were demolished, but the lower buildings were also destroyed. A general plan was created, which stated that on the ground level of the 4-story buildings, shops must be established. In 1860, the first licenses for florists and newsagents were given. In southern countries, marketplaces have a central role. Do you remember how fondly Zola describes the stomach of Paris? Or Joanne Harris talks about the French marketplace? One can feel the same dedication towards the Spanish cuisine in the St. Joseph Hall. There are hills of fresh fruits, many of them unknown to the untrained eye. There are figs, kumquats, physalis, and carambola. Everything that grows under the Mediterranean sun. Shop owners make a salad from the fruits and sell them in cold plastic glasses. There's a huge quantity of candied and dried fruit. The vegetables are also rare, as for example, endive, beans, asparagus, and artichokes. The myriad of seafood is shown on an ice bed. Lobster, crayfish, scampi, sea urchin, octopus, and calamari. The clams have a nacreous glow, the lobsters are red, and some of the creatures wave to the visitor with their tentacles. However, it's unlikely that they are volunteering to be the main course in the Sunday meal. Some of the fish look at the customers with disgust, while others lie silently on the stands. Seafood is an important part of the Spanish national dish, paella. Butchers offer the Spanish jamón, which is at least as good as any Italian and French hams. There are tempting Catalonian specialties as well, salamis and sausages. There are at least 800 stands in the hall. The Santa Maria del Pi church is the most honored representative of the French Gothic style, while the interior is the Catalonian version of the same style. Its commanding figure stands out with its horizontal proportioning, modest ornaments, and clear-cut lines. The main facade is a perfect quadrangle with 2 pillars on each side. These would have been the holding device for the 2 non-built towers. There's a Trecento Mary statue in the archway above the gate. The motifs of the church echo in the false stuccos of the opposing buildings. In 1848, the city invited applications for a tender for a building to be erected in the place of the demolished Capuchin monastery. The winner of the competition was Francisco Daniel Molina, who, in his revolutionary passion, christened it Plaza Garibaldi, or Garibaldi Square, surrounded with buildings and archways. The name was later changed to Plaza Real. The facades of the 3-story buildings are the same, all closed by a balustrade. In the middle of the square, there's a fountain of the 3 Graces. The archways are ornamented by statues of famous explorers and sailors, and they're also remembered by the palm trees brought here from the New World. The wrought iron lamps were designed by the young Gaudi. Their style is mostly eclectic and architectonic. There's several passages on the sides of the Rambla. To comply with the needs of the age, the traditional building material was substituted by steel. It was this aspiration that inspired the Eiffel Tower in Paris, the San Jose Market, and the Columbus Monument in Barcelona. Somerset Maugham called the Rambla the world's most beautiful street. It's a forever-changing sight which never gets old, a kaleidoscope run by the restless Catalonian temper. The nearby Perot-Lo Lladre Street bears the name of a 17th century robber. His figure appears in several Spanish literary pieces. Artists are an integral part of the square. Besides portraits, they love to draw pictures of the city's main sights. In 1568, Philip II of Spain allowed the Santa Cruz Hospital to amuse the patients with dramatic performances. That was the forerunner of the Teatro Principal. The classicist building was finished in the middle of the 19th century. Opposite of the building, there's the statue of Frederick Soler, the founder of modern Catalonian acting. The Museo de Cera is a waxworks museum. There are wax figures of about 300 famous historical figures which, thanks to modern technology, can even speak. Placing small drinking fountains on squares is a nice Catalonian custom. On the Rambla, the tourist can quench his thirst with the water of the Santa Ana, Puerta Fredisa, and Canalates drinking fountains. A relief recently handed over to the public tells us the history of the Rambla and the lives of the people who lived here. The Rambla reaches the sea by the Plaza Puerta de la Paz. The building of the former foundry has served as the headquarters of the Bank of Barcelona since 1844. Beside it is the building of the Military Regency, which in its appearance resembles the Petit Trianon Palace in Versailles. There's the Columbus Monument in the middle of the square, which is the symbol of Barcelona. The 66.6-meter-high monument is made of a stone pedestal, a cast-iron pillar, a gilded globe, and a 7.6-meter-high statue standing on top of it. 4 steps lead up to the pedestal, protected by bronze lions. The reliefs on the pedestal show episodes from the life of the great explorers. The author is José Llimona. The monument itself was designed by Galleta Buigas y Monrava in 1882. Cristoforo Colombo, Cristobal Colon in Spanish, was born in 1446, most likely in Genoa. However, many cities would like to claim the title of his birthplace. As a young man, he earned his keep as a sailor and map maker. He came to the conclusion that he could reach China and India without going around Africa by constantly traveling westwards, based on the idea of Toscanelli. First, he asked for the support of the Portuguese king, but was refused. Therefore, he turned to the Spanish royal couple. The Catholic kings, Ferdinand II and Isabella, decided to support him only after a long time. The original ships were destroyed, but their designs remained. The new Santa Maria was built upon these designs and floated in the harbor for a long time. It's currently in the Barcelona Maritime Museum, while its copy serves as a tourist ship near the island of Madeira. There's a lift inside the monument, since there was not enough room to build stairs. There's a beautiful sight from the globe to the harbor and the Montjuic Hill. From here, one can see the buildings of the Military Regency, the Council of the Harbor Communal Works, the Customs House, the Maritime Museum, and the new harbor. The Council of the Harbor Communal Works was built in 1878 after the complete demolition of the city wall and the opening of the Paseo de Colón. The Secession-style building with its unique towers is the gem of the promenade. It gives room to public offices. The bridge leading to the new harbor building can be turned in order for larger ships to be able to stay in the inner harbor and sail off from there. The harbor building, called the Mare Magnum, looks like the mixture of a modern mall and an airport. Tourists travel from its immense hall to the Canary Islands, the Cape Verde Islands, the Azores, the Balear Islands, and Madeira. But most of the tourists visit the island of Majorca, also a part of Catalonia. There's a three-dimensional movie theater in the building in order to make the wait more comfortable. In front of it, there's an old wooden submarine, the Ictineo II. But it's already a part of Barcelona's important site, the Maritime Museum. The museum was arranged in the giant halls of the Las Atarazanas ship factory. The 36,000 square meter building is the only medieval industrial building which remained in its original state. The factory was in operation between the 14th and 18th centuries. Beside the Maritime Museum, there's a library and archives for charts, photographs, and documents. Parallel to the seaside runs the Paseo de Colón, a wide avenue bordered by palaces. Here in the Barceloneta district, there is the aquarium, as well as the starting point of the Teleférico, the rail taking tourists up to the Montjuic Hill. The natives of Barcelona were the Layetans, who were a tribe of Celtic origin. Their name is kept by the Via Layetana, which lies on the border of the old Gothic and the modern parts of the city. There is a statue of King Berenguer on this avenue. The work of José Yemona commemorates the king who for a short time unified Catalonia with Provence. The Catalonian language of our days is closer to the Provençal and contains more French elements than Spanish. The city core was built on the Tabor Hill. 600 years later, the Romans surrounded the area with a 1,270-meter-long, 9-meter-high, 3.5-meter-thick wall, which was also protected by 78 towers and bastions. There are some Arabian and Roman relics, but the Gothic quarter is mostly similar to the medieval city, as it was seen by the victims of the Catholic King's Inquisition. The Santa Maria del Mar temple on the seaside part of the Gothic district is a beautiful example of the Spanish Gothic style. Its painted windows and inner domes are an amazing sight. The most famous site of the Gothic quarter is the St. Eulalia Cathedral. Its building began in 1298, and during the 150 years of its construction, many great artists worked on it. In the first 20 years, the work was organized by Juan Fabra. The temple has 3 naves, a transept, and a shrine. Its facade is the work of French architect Charles Gaudi. The facade looking to the Plaza de la Seu was a generous gift of Don Manuel Girona in the 19th century. The cathedral is typical of the Catalonian Gothic style, with its horizontal proportion, smooth surfaces, and flat roof. However, none of this can be seen since the cathedral is being renovated. There's no hope for tourists to see its full beauty before 2010. The interior is 82 meters long. At the end of the main nave, the apsis, there's the crypt of St. Eulalia. There are tombs of saints and bishops in the 28 chapels. The christening chapel was the one where those 6 Indians were christened who were brought back to Europe by Columbus. There's a blackened Christ statue in the first chapel, which was on the victorious ship of Don Juan de Austria in the Battle of Lepanto. Above the balcony of the cannon, there's the crest of the Order of the Golden Fleece. The order was established by Duke Philip III of Burgundy in 1429 to protect faith, virtue, and morals. The honor, which still exists, is maybe the oldest and least frequently given one in the world. The right of bestowal has been owned by the Habsburg family since 1477. The cloister can be accessed through an 11th century Roman-style marble gate. The yard, full of palm trees and evergreens, is surrounded by arches. The chapels opening from here are closed by iron bars. The pavilion of St. George is ornamented by a relief of the saint and a fountain. It's worth taking a look at the medieval exhibition of the museum. The museum gets richer and richer every year. The material is filling up the prebendal office, the prebendal room, and the 2 rooms beneath them. The most valuable relics are the Piete by Bermeo, the 15th century wooden panel picture of the saints, and a carved, painted Virgin Mary statue. The square in front of the cathedral is famous for the Sardana dance. It happens quite often that at the sound of a whistle or a flute, complete strangers hold hands and start a slow, round dance, while more and more people join them. This dance isn't about strong tramping, it isn't quick and passionate, but symbolizes the togetherness of the Catalonian people. The closed circle is the symbol of the unity compared to the outside world. However, if a stranger comes to the circle, it opens up and admits him. They welcome everyone who's willing to understand them. This was written by Norbert Lewandowski. The cathedral is surrounded by buildings so tightly as no other temple. The temple is connected by the St. Lucia chapel to the Calle Obispo. The help of St. Lucia is required mostly for problems related to the eyes. Blind people of Barcelona hold their annual ball in the cloister of the cathedral. There are so many religious buildings in the Gothic quarter that it's hard to name them all. The Palace of the Deacon, the Palace of the Bishop, the Temple of St. Philip Romoloneri, the Temple of St. Severus, the Prebendary House, the Temple of St. Eustace and the Good Shepherd, the St. Agatha Chapel, the House of the Charitable Almoners. Among profane buildings, the City Hall, the Provincial Office, the Governor's Palace, and the Gallery of Catalonian Excellences stand out. Each of them has an inner yard with arches, decorated by glazed tiles and cooled by fountains, with palm trees in the yards. In the longest part of the medieval period, the Balear Islands, Valencia, Sardinia, and Corsica were ruled by the Aragon Catalonian Kingdom, paying their income tax to Barcelona. During the reign of Ferdinand II, the maritime power of the kingdom became much stronger. The religious, military, political, and diplomatic power reigned in these palaces until the 18th century. Several museums speak about the 2,000 years of development. The two-storied Gothic building of the City Hall was purchased by the city in the 18th century, and the matters of the city have been governed from here since then. The Hall of the Hundred, the Hall of Chronicles, and the Council Chamber can be visited between 10 a.m. and noon each day. The Royal Palace incorporates Roman, Gothic, and Renaissance elements and was built between the 11th and 16th centuries. The monumental design of the facade reflects the taste of the popes of Avignon. There are 3 entrances to the left of the entrance of the palace, with Roman-style windows divided into 3. Above the 3 arches there are small galleries with carved stone roses. The Triforium was built under the rule of Peter the Great, while the rose ornaments were the idea of Peter IV, King of Aragon. From the 5-story guard tower, the whole Gothic district can be seen. The square, named after Berenguer, is exceptionally beautiful from here. The assembly hall of the palace was the scene of many historical moments of Spanish and Catalonian history between 1372 and 1935. In its time, the 17-meter-wide dome of Guillem Carbonell was a real architectural achievement. The Catalonian Assembly Hall was built upon the order of Peter IV, and its arches support a boarded ceiling. Originally, there were 19 alabaster statues of Master Alloy here, but these and the paintings of Homme des Feux disappeared during the turmoil of the intervening centuries. The St. Agatha Chapel is part of the Royal Palace, as is the work of Pere de Oliveira. There are only a few Roman relics in Barcelona. Among these are the 2 large 4-story towers which protected the northeastern gate of the city wall. Less known are the pillars of the Roman Forum and the remains of the Spa, which were only found in the 20th century under the yard of a Gothic palace. The Columnus Romanus is one of the monuments difficult to find. Luckily, those who take part in the round trip by bus are treated to a free tour to the Gothic Quarter, and then all secrets are revealed. The sightseeing is conducted in Spanish, English, or German. The people here are very proud of prominent Catalonians, especially of Gaudi and Dali, and the honorable Catalonian Picasso. Let's not forget that Joan Miró, Josep Maria Jujol, and Pablo Casals were also born here. East of the Gothic Quarter is the Picasso Museum in the Berenguer Palace. The painter was born in the Andalusian Malaga in 1881, but moved to Barcelona with his parents at the age of 15. His rich career started here to be fulfilled in Paris. Picasso lived in almost the whole Mediterranean area with his different muses. His artistic periods were denoted by colors. This exhibition contains many of his early figurative pieces, which enrich the ideas developed about his art and make him beloved by even those who are not fond of modern painting. Salvador Dali was born in 1904 as the son of a Catalonian notary in Figueras. The genius of surrealistic painting has his own exhibition in his birthplace, but some of his fascinating pieces can also be seen in Barcelona. The Plaza de Catalunya is the busiest square of the city. Under it, there's a railway station. From here, trains depart towards the French border and the Pyrenees. There's several statues in the hall. The water comes from a few dolphins' mouths into the overly romantic fountain. The goddess statue of José Clara hails the eternal beauty of the naked female body. The symbolic statue of trade is the work of Federico Maras. It's a man wearing a helmet, leading a horse, and a woman on the horse who holds a ship. In Catalonia, the master of incomprehensible symbols is disliked because he was the one who made the Victoria statue for General Franco. There are 6 more statues on the square, bordered by shops and banks where the tourists enjoy cooling down in the spray of the fountains. The square can be divided into 2. The upper part is covered by grass. Among the sycamore trees of the Paseo da Grazia, there are 2 large fountains, spraying their water into the sky. The stone surface of the lower part has the shape of an 8-pointed star. There are benches standing in the shade of trees, and people feed the pigeons. Originally, the plans were about a square 7 times this large. However, the final decision was made by the budget itself. Soon, the Plaza Catalunya was bordered by the building monsters of real estate speculators. Later, a strong mayor decided to settle the matter. He demolished the buildings which did not fit the surroundings and asked architect Francesco Nebot to design uniform houses. The new square was unveiled in 1927. There are 6 entrances to the metro. Several lines cross each other here. From this point, one can reach almost every part of the city by metro or bus. However, it's more practical for tourists to take one of the sightseeing buses. All these buses stop here at the end of the trip. There are 3 kinds of tours: green, red, and blue. Each of them visit all the most important sites of the city. One can take off anywhere, see a museum, church, or other building, and return to the buses, which leave every 10 minutes. The daily ticket is valid for an unlimited number of ons and offs, from morning until dusk, while navigation is helped by a map provided with the ticket. The ticket also gives a price reduction for certain admission fees and discounts in some cafes and restaurants. The Green Line takes the tourists along the coast and in the harbor. One passes by the Governor's Palace and the main post office, and also gets a glimpse at the Plaza de Medinaceli and the statue of the Catalonian genius. The latter 2 are the works of Francesco Daniel Molina, who was not only a sculptor, but alongside Gaudi, the greatest architect of the city as well. In the crossing of Avenida Gran Via de la Cort Catalanes and 2 other avenues stands the God Save Spain monument. The work of Gaudi's follower, Josep Maria Jujol, unified a statue, a fountain, and the internal fire in this one piece. The statues in the 3 chambers symbolize the 3 Spanish seas: the Mediterranean, the Calabrian, and the Atlantic Ocean. There's a waterfall coming down from under the statues and a large eternal fire on top of the pillars. Going towards the Montjuic Hill, the next site is the Caixa Forum, a cultural center, which gives space mostly to modern arts. The Pueblo Español, the Spanish village, was built by Miguel Utrillo and Xavier Narguez with the purpose of letting visitors of the 1929 World Fair learn about the architecture of Spain without leaving Barcelona. Vajdahunyad Castle of Budapest was built for similar reasons. Neither of them is an open-air museum, since these are not original buildings from different parts of the country, but copies of the most general ones. The buildings are not built in their original proportions. The building materials like stone, brick, tile, wood, however, are from the place of origin. The main entrance is a copy of the St. Vincent Gate of Avila. Squares and streets change as the province changes. one can see the characteristic buildings and squares of Castile, Galicia, Aragon, Catalonia, Andalusia, Basque Country, and Extremadura. In their workshops, glassblowers, blacksmiths, woodcarvers, goldsmiths, carpet makers, and confectioners prepare their goods in front of tourists. The National Museum of Applied Arts shows visitors the old tools of agriculture, hunting, fishing, and pastoral duties. During the summer, at the entrance of the village, mounted policemen are having regular ceremonies. Laszlo Huba writes the following in his diary. This is a sort of summary of Spain, which was established especially for tourists. All areas of Hispania represent themselves, palaces, styles, as well as products and clothing. The Pueblo Español was made for the World Fair, but it's been in use ever since. The towered building of the Museum of Catalonian Arts opened its doors to visitors in 1934. The monumental gallery is a real maze and has 34 halls, with pictures placed mostly in chronological order. The frescoes of the antechamber were painted by Togores and Humbert. In the first 6 halls, there are Roman-style frescoes and fragments originating from the Catalonian land. The most valuable piece is the fresco of the apsis of the St. Clement Chapel, which was sanctified in 1123, called Christ Pantocrator. The author is unknown, the value is inestimable. The secular pieces from the last 2 halls are from the palaces of the nobles of Barcelona. The sites of the first floor are the throne room and tea salon, ornamented by Baroque stuccos. As a real Spanish specialty, it's worth it to take a look at the Azulejo exhibition. Part of the painted tiles surfaced during an excavation. A famous site of the city is the Fuente Luminosa, the illuminated fountain, where pumps push 2,430 liters of water in the air every minute to be sprayed by fans. The water is lit by 4,730 lamps, with 10 colored filters on every one of them. The fountain was built for the 1929 World Fair by engineer Carles Buigas. Of course, today, the whole mechanism is controlled electronically. From the stairs of the museum, not only the fountain and the 2 pillars formerly serving as the entrance of the World Fair can be seen, but the whole Sagrada Familia district, with the famous cathedral in the center. The Olympic swimming pool, where the swimming, water polo, and diving events were held, was built into the mountain in a terraced way. Nowadays, tourists marvel at the panorama of the city from the pool. The Barceloneta is a triangular area surrounded by the harbor and beaches, which exists thanks to an order by Philip V at the beginning of the 1700s. Up to this day, mostly fishermen and sailors lived here with their families. Carles Buigas, the designer of the illuminated fountain, wanted to connect this romantic district with the Montjuic Hill. The plan was accomplished only 2 years after the 1928 World Fair. The suspended rail, called Teleférico, starts from the Barceloneta district and finishes its journey after 1,300 meters in Miramar Park on the Montjuic Hill. The height of the starting point is 80 meters, while the middle station is located at 107 meters. There's also a rail on the Montjuic which departs from nearby Miramar Park and goes above the star-shaped Military History Museum. Archive of Courtesy, host to foreigners, hospital for the poor, grateful correspondence of firm friendships, and unique in location and in beauty, Cervantes wrote of Barcelona, the 20th century development of which received a new dash from the acceptance of autonomy. The liberal winds blowing after the 1975 death of General Franco also raised the Catalonian flag high. The locals did everything in order for their city to become a real capital, which would be able to compete with Madrid. The city of several million has already reached the Cosyest mountain in the north and the airport in the west, while in the east it's almost merged with the city of Badalona. However, it cannot expand to the south, where its nearest neighbor is the Mediterranean Sea and then North Africa. The famous Casa Bastillo has been welcoming visitors since 1904. The six-story building with its rippling balconies, ceramic wall tiles, and roofs is a modernist work of Antoni Gaudi. The most characteristic are the rippling openings of the first floor, the division of the windows, the alignment of the slim pillars, and the balconies. The balconies look like openings on a festival mask. As is the case with all the works of Gaudi, the exterior and the interior are in complete accordance. This is the real masterpiece of Gaudi, who hated straight lines. He designed several buildings in Barcelona. Beside the Sagrada Familia, the Parc Güell, the Passeig de Gràcia, and the Avenida Gran Via de la Cort Catalanes, everyone who speaks about the Gaudi house means the Casa Bastillo. Of course, Gaudi had several followers. Modernism, the Catalonian secession, and the organic architecture did not die together with him. The unique mood of Barcelona continuously inspires architects to design similar 21st century buildings. Maybe it's because of the absence of ceramic ornaments and colors that one feels that the Casa Milla, only 2 blocks away, is colder and less personal. It is often called interesting, faint praise in comparison with its more ornate cousins. Not beautiful, but interesting, as if for some unknown reason an old hill full of caves would have appeared at the busy avenue of the city. The windows are shapeless, the facade is rippling, and the bars of the balconies evoke trees, while the chimneys are abstract statues. There are no colors, only the ochre shade of the stone. Those who've never been to Barcelona would never think that this is one of Europe's most pleasant and livable cities. Moreover, those who haven't been here in the past 25 to 30 years are even more surprised. Mild climate, safe streets, a lot of green, many parks, wide avenues, and the accumulated monuments of 2,000 years await visitors. The people are kind and friendly, the cultural life is vivid, the programs are colorful, and the cuisine is very good. The city has done a lot for the environment. Even the trams run through grass, which is watered by an automatic system. The city contains one of the largest yacht and boat harbors in Europe. There's a zoo, an amusement park, a beach, and an aqua park, while the Olympic Village also awaits visitors, plus hotels and restaurants, not to mention Gaudi and Dali. The Arco de Triunfo, standing on the Ciudadela Square, was originally the entrance for the 1888 World Fair. The work of José Villaseca follows the Mudéjar style, which is a synthesis of the Spanish and Moor art. The octagonal pillars, built from red brick, stand beneath winged statues, which peer down to visitors. Above the gate on both sides, there's the crest of Catalonia. On the square in front of the arch, there are giant, secession-style iron lamps shedding light. The woman figure with the umbrella of the fountain before the zoo, in a smaller piece, is the main prize of the Film Festival of Catalonia. The statue was designed by Juan Roig y Soler, who turned away from the religious depictions of his age. The Sagrada Familia, also known as the Saint Family Cathedral, is the best-known site of Barcelona and the most controversial building in the whole of Spain. Many do not know that it was not built upon the initiation of Gaudi and was not even started by him. It was bookseller Josep Maria Bocabella y Fidalgo who established the St. Joseph Society and came up with the idea to build a cathedral in the town commemorating the house of the Holy Family in Nazareth. They bought an area north of the diagonal and gave the architect Francesco da Villar the task of preparing the designs. Later, not only the designs were finished, but also the foundation. However, Bocabella and Villar had an argument, and the construction was stopped. In 1891, Joan Martorell was asked to continue, but he proposed Gaudi instead of himself, who started to work with great enthusiasm. He got rid of all the previous plans and came up with completely new ideas. The basic style remained neo-Gothic regarding the structural design, the huge towers, and the strong vertical proportion, but the details are absolutely unique. The Sagrada Familia is based upon a medieval system of symbols. From the three facades, the eastern one represents the birth, the western one, the suffering, while the southern one represents the resurrection of Christ. Gaudi designed 4 107-meter-high towers above all the facades, which represent the 12 apostles of Christ. On the corner of the facades, there are 3 larger towers, which are 130 meters tall and represent the Holy Spirit, Virgin Mary, and God the Father. The largest tower in the middle is 160 meters tall and bears the name of Jesus Christ. There are 4 smaller domes around it with the symbols of the 4 evangelists on them. The 3 entrances represent faith, hope, and love. Through these, one can enter into the temple symbolizing the divine world. The proportions are as far-flung as the plan itself. The main nave is 95 meters long. The transept is 30 times 60 meters. Gaudi died in 1926. With the permission of the Pope, he was buried here in the Sagrada Familia. Below the apex, there's a passage leading from one tower to the other. There's a beautiful view to the city as well, but this is the place where this fantastic construction can really be understood. The Parc Güell also reminds one of Gaudi, since the house of the master was here. The head of one of the wealthiest Catalonian aristocratic families, José Güell, ordered many works from Gaudi. He asked him to design the Güell Palace standing beside the Rambla. In 1910, he bought a huge estate on top of the Plaka hill and formed triangular areas there. The houses were supposed to be placed in the middles of the triangles so as not to disturb the view from the other houses. It would have been a modern block of flats. Gaudi built the entrance pavilions and a portico with a balcony. However, the parcels were not bought, thus the area became a park with only one building standing. There are furniture and other items here, which were all designed by the architect. There's an archway and a passage bordered by agaves, cactuses, and palm trees leading up to the lookout balcony. The 100-meter-long balcony is bordered by a balustrade, which was ornamented by glazed tiles. This ornament is made up of tiles, broken bottles, and broken porcelain plates. This balcony would not only have been a lookout spot, but also a playground. The whole balcony stands on 86 pillars, Some of them are angular because it's statically better this way. This grandiose hall would have been the market of the place. The pillars and the ceiling were prepared by Gaudi and his follower, José. The water-spouting lizard, which lies between two staircases, is very famous. It's on almost every postcard and souvenir from Barcelona. The gatehouse and the house of the caretaker are similar to fairy tale houses. On one side, there's a chimney with a Gothic stone flower on top. The maiolica-covered roof of the other one is like the spine of a reptile. The rugged windows are like the eyes of this reptile. The other tile-covered roof is similar to the tiara of the Pope. These are not fitting elements which nonetheless create a harmonic unity. It's clear that the artist of the Catalonian secession, who was constantly looking for new forms, let his fantasy run freely in this park. The Pedralbes Palace is commonly known as Palau Real, the Royal Palace. The antique building, which was inspired by Italian aristocratic architecture, was built in 1925 for Alfonso XIII. Its rooms serve as quarters for kings, presidents, and diplomats visiting the city. The Virgin Mary of Pedralbes Monastery was built in 1419 on the northwestern edge of Barcelona. The St. Clara order was named after the sister of Francis of Assisi. There are nuns of this order living here up to this day. Therefore, not all the buildings can be visited. The temple, the museum, and the monastery garden grasp the visitor with their medieval mood. The former monastery for men was built on the design of the Santa Maria di Bassalu Priori. Today, it provides space for religious offices. The simple, horizontal proportion of the temple is a complete opposite of the vertical mass of the belfry. There's the crest of Queen Isabel on the side facade. The garden is surrounded by a several-story-high arched loggia. There's a fountain in the middle. The garden is full of palm trees, orange and loquat trees. They're blossoming oleanders on the wall. Tibidabo Hill is the favorite excursion place of the locals. In 1900, a rich local patriot apothecary, Dr. Andrew, established the Tibidabo Corporation. The blue tram and the funicular railway were built. There's a car of the legendary Tram Azul exhibited on top of the hill. The two vehicles taking the visitors to the funicular rail were powered by two 45-horsepower engines, which are now considered to be industrial relics. On top of the 532-meter-high hill, there's the Temple of the Sacred Heart, with an observatory and amusement park beside it. Almost everyone who spends at least 1 week in Barcelona takes an excursion to the Costa Brava, the wild coast starting 100 kilometers from the city. The southern edge of it is Blanes, once famous for its harbor. Now it's full of modern hotels and sunny beaches. There's a botanic garden here where orchids, cactuses, succulents, and palms await the visitors. The most well-known resort of the area is Lloret de Mar, which is nothing more than a huge beach. At both ends of the half-circle, covered with golden sand, there are huge cliffs. There's the castle of Sacaleta from 1929 on the northern cliff. The streets of Lloret are full of tourists from spring to autumn. There's always a large crowd here since this is one of Europe's disco capitals, where it's not uncommon that 120,000 people are attracted by the Mediterranean night at the same time. It's worth taking a look at the Maiolica roof, Gothic church, and the museum beside the city hall. There's a statue of a woman on the southern cliff. Standing beside it, one can enjoy the view of the beach and the endless sea. Tossa de Mar is similar to other holiday centers, only nicer. The city core was built on the cliff closing the bay and is called the Vila Vella. The castle wall was built in the 12th century to protect the city from pirates. At the foot of the wall, there are little taverns where one can eat fish meals, zarzuela, and other Catalonian specialties, and follow it with a sip of Spanish sangria. It's worth walking up the cobbled alleys leading up to the hill because of the beautiful sight. One can see the full beach from up here, and if one goes higher, up to the lighthouse, one can see the open waters and the cliffs standing out of it. The salty spray of the sea is mixed with the smell of the pine trees, while the seagulls are flying over one's head. This is the Mediterranean dream. Sant Feliu de Guíxols is the largest city on the coast. It got its name after Saint Felix, who drowned in the sea around 304. Iberians, Romans, Moors, and Charlemagne, a hectic past. Today, Sant Feliu is an exclusive holiday resort with beautiful hotels and several cultural activities. There's the monument of poet Ferran Agulló here. He was the one who first called this area Costa Brava. Girona is the capital of the province. The charters full of visitors to Costa Brava arrive here. The city core, built on the bank of the Rio Onyar, is one of the prettiest in the whole country, so there's a lot to see, in case the weather isn't that good. Sant Feliu, or Saint Felix, was the bishop of the city. The Gothic temple standing near the cathedral bears his name. The city, which has 90,000 inhabitants and a Mediterranean mood, has a 2,500-year-long history. Napoleon sieged the city for 7 months without success. There are many fascinating exhibitions to see here. The relic collection of the Episcopal Palace is unique, but a walk on the street named after Queen Joan or on the Rambla de la Libertad would be equally joyful. The Cathedral of Girona stands out among the many great Spanish religious buildings. There's a monumental staircase leading up to the main gate. Many elements from the original Roman temple remained intact. The most interesting is the picturesque cloister. There's an invaluable tapestry in the treasury which shows the life of Adam and Eve in 30 parts. In one of the cafes under the archway, one can have a sip of the Spanish almond milk, the horchata. The Bay of Roses is more than a location in Costa Brava, it's a concept. Its location is beautiful, with the often snow-covered Pyrenees in the background. People have lived here since the Stone Age. In medieval times, Roses was the center of the Catalonian fleet. Later, fishing and coral trade made the city richer and richer. The Spanish Armada sailed off to the Battle of Lepanto from the nearby harbor. In this battle, fighting against the Turks, Cervantes, writer of Don Quixote, lost one of his arms. The large, thick-walled citadel was built upon the order of Charles V. Later, the French demolished it, but the temples and ruins in this large area are still worth taking a look at. Caracas existed for centuries as a small fishing village. In 1543, the whole settlement was burned by the pirates of Barbarossa, and most of the locals died. Later, they defended themselves successfully several times against recurring attacks. Even later, under the leadership of Salvador Dali, they resisted the order of General Franco, namely to demolish small houses and build larger ones instead of them. There are only a few villages on the Costa Brava which have been able to keep their original buildings and atmosphere. All the houses are painted white, while the largest building is still the church. Many people say that this is the most beautiful city of the area, and those who do not walk in the alleys of this city have not seen much of Costa Brava. It was because of the intactness of Cadaqués that the artistic school, where Dali, Picasso, Matisse, Max Ernst, Duchamp, and Éluard worked, was established here. Two of the greatest authors writing in Spanish also lived here. They were García Lorca and García Márquez. The statue of Dali now stands on the walkway on the shore. His father was born here, so he spent all his holidays in the city during his childhood. There are 3 museums in Cadaqués. One of them is Europe's largest private collection, which is owned by the Perot Moore Foundation. It's worth taking a look at the nice house on the shore where Picasso lived in 1910. Quiet little bay where Dali lived with his wife Gala is only a half-hour from Cadaqués. Port Lligat is a charming little fishing village. The house which inspired Mr. Surrealism is only a few steps away from the shore. The exhibition in the rooms of the house concentrates not on the painter, but on the man. Most of the items to be found are tools, books, painting material, and pictures. From the windows, one can still see the barks, which were also there several decades earlier. Figueras only became famous in the 20th century thanks to its native son Salvador Dali, although it was already a town in 1267 when it received this title from the king. Its fort is the second largest in Europe, where 10,000 soldiers can be stationed at the same time. It cannot be visited since it's still in use by the military. The town is mostly visited because of the old theater, which was renovated and reopened with the name Teatro Museo Dali. The shocking surrealist pieces intrigue hundreds of thousands each year. There are not only paintings here, but also statues, moving statues, and installations. All of them are the children of the fantasy of the master. Dali felt at home in several artistic branches. There's the film made with Buñuel, an Andalusian dog, but he also made the scenery for the Hitchcock movie Spellbound. Dali was laid to rest in this shocking museum. He lies beneath one of the unnamed stones of the bridging, while his wax alter ego is taken to larger exhibitions in a glass coffin. Everything is about Dali in this city. All of the shops sell items, souvenirs, which are in connection with him. His most famous paintings can be bought on posters, calendars, postcards, or on t-shirts. His brilliant ideas, like the melting clocks, can also be bought in the form of an ashtray, pencil sharpener, or table lamp. Bookshops offer a myriad of artistic albums and biographies. Besalú is a trip to medieval times. The city, which has only 2,000 inhabitants, welcomes 10,000s of visitors each year. There's a massive bridge with 8 arches above Rio Fluvia leading to the city center. Besalú was one of the province centers already during the Visigoths and the Romans. Part of the city wall is still standing. The main square, the Plaza Mayor, has a nice atmosphere. One can start off from here to take a look at the ruins, cloister, and belfry of the Monasterio de Sant Pere and the Roman-style temple of St. Vincent's. From the ruins of Castel de Besalú, one can take a last look at the wild coast.